The money that you're going to spend on a Facebook ad is 10 times more valuable in that environment than a newspaper ad or a penny saver ad that you're running out to your local community. In today's modern age, customers are scrolling through their news feed constantly. MyBFF Social and our creative team create thumb-stopping content that really creates an emotional trigger for your customer to take an action. And when you look at the media landscape that exists today, by far and away, social media advertising and online digital advertising proves itself out time over time. And we're happy to share the analytics with you, to walk you through the steps and what it takes, and really help prove out the return on investment for your advertising dollars. Hello and welcome to the MyBFF Business Leaders Podcast, where we pull back the curtain to reveal winning strategies from some of today's most effective CEOs, marketers, and innovators. Listen in as we take a deep dive into their inspiring stories and game-changing ideas that are delivering results. MyBFF Business Leaders Podcast, your new secret weapon for business success. Sponsored by MyBFF Social Media, Marketing, and Advertising. Make sure to hit subscribe. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MyBFF Business Leaders Podcast. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Carla Rayman Kidd, Director of Business Development for Coldwell Banker Island Affiliates. And if you're living in the northern climates like I am, boy, you sure like to visit some of these islands that Carla and her team represents. So welcome, Carla.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, we like to start the program with a kind of a setup question to kick it off. And I always like to ask each guest, what was your first car and what is a good or bad memory you have of that automotive experience?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I don't even know that half of your audience will probably even know this car, but I grew up in the 80s. Small town, hot rods were kind of a little popular. So when I was 16, I got a birthday card from my dad, and it had these pop-out hands, and each hand had a key glued to it. And the key was for a 1971 Javelin, believe it or not. And that was my very first car. It was white. All the boys were really jealous in high school because, I had like this racy, great little car. And so it was a ton of problems. So I guess my experience with this car would be that every time that I made a turn, like around, say I had to do a hard right-hand turn, I had to have my foot on both the brake and the gas pedal in order for it to keep going, or it would stall out. Great.
We've all been there. So I know, many of our listeners, as I said, are in colder climates, and we're, almost mid-February here. And I see your social media posts and your ads, and man, boy, I think to myself, wow, that would be a really nice place to spend a lot of time, or even have a second home. What's the best way for folks to, get to take a look and really understand, the value of the type of residential properties and condos and villas that you have going on there with Coldwell Banker?
Sure. Well, I just for everyone to know, this is Turks and Caicos in the background here. So those beautiful turquoise waters, just to give everybody a little flavor as we get started here. But we have a website. It's coldwellbankerislands.com. And that really, if you haven't been to the islands or you have been to the islands, that's a great way to start doing a little bit of research there. It's just get online. We have a lot of resources for you. So that's one way to start. But people typically, when they're looking for property, and this is normally what I get, right? So cruises are always very, very popular to the islands. So people will take a cruise and then they'll say, okay, we really like that island. Maybe we want to explore a little bit more. So we are very fortunate that we have a lot of rentals. for our visitors that come down. So you can rent a villa, but, absorb yourself. Go for not only a week, try to go for a month and get yourself involved in just the locals' life, right? Get to know the food, the culture, the people, and do everything that the locals do. And that way you're going to get a feeling as to whether that island is appropriate for you. But if that's, not possible, I always do one-on-one consultations with either agents or their clients. Just talk a little bit about what your wants and needs are and, what might be best for you, what islands would be a good fit. Of course, we have direct flights too, and that makes it a lot easier now. So you have more direct flights every month from New York, from California, Texas, and of course, Florida, Canada, everywhere. We're seeing it. The islands are becoming much more popular. So they're much more accessible to get to.
Beautiful. So speaking of websites and the latest trends in tech and so forth, what does Coldwell Banker Island Affiliates do to help its affiliates, leverage that technology and marketing to attract buyers and sellers, not only from, the United States, but around the world?
Well, that's part of my job and one of the reasons that I was hired to do this. So, of course, we do all the things that many companies would do with respect to technology. I think we're very fortunate, though, because of the brand that we do have a lot of extra whistles and bells, for agents and consumers. So it just makes the process easier. We obviously do targeted advertising and marketing. We use social media a lot. Obviously, BFF does some things for us, and you're a gem. So we do appreciate you. But, there's always this face-to-face thing that's really important too. And that's kind of where I come into play. So when I say face-to-face, it's not only necessarily like sitting down with someone and having a cup of coffee, but we have Zoom technology like we're kind of doing now. So we have podcasts, we have webinars, and it's a great place where people can get together in one space. They can see the face, they can hear the conversation, they can get a feel of what that person is like and a flavor of maybe a little bit of what the islands are like as well. So that to me is important, going to trade shows, meeting with other agents, meeting with consumers, and just building that personal relationship. There's nothing that's going to replace face-to-face, but technology is extremely important. Just like I said, like technology like this, where we can come at you and do a personal building of a relationship.
Beautiful. So I know Coldwell Banker Island Affiliates represents, I think you're the largest and leading residential real estate organization serving the Western Atlantic and the Caribbean. You have islands of Aruba, Bahamas, Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, the Cayman, Curacao, Dominican Republic, Grenada, Jamaica, St. Croix, St. Thomas, Turks and Caicos, St. Lucia, St. Martin. You hear of all these islands and kind of like the extravagance, and sometimes, the rich and famous, they like to play in the islands, right? Have you ever had any experiences, or, I know that you guys have been servicing this part of the world for quite a while, that you want to share or could share with our listeners?
Well, because of the brand, we get a lot of referrals, both buyer and seller. So that makes it nice because there's this tight community of companies around the world, the franchisees that own the Coldwell Banker franchise, and even within the Realogy network, where people will come to us because they know we're very big in the island areas. So that affords us the ability to really pick up a lot of what I would call trophy properties, that and the fact that, the islands just, for the most part, are a luxury market, right? But we do have one. I don't know if you can throw it up and we can take a look at it. But our owner of the British Virgin Islands just got a listing, and the house has a very unique name. It's called the Eyrie, and it is owned by Sir Richard Branson. So if you know Sir Richard Branson, right? Virgin Airlines. Okay. So Sir Richard Branson bought something called Mosquito Island back in 2007. And he developed Mosquito Island into 10 different lots, one in which he has his own personal estate. And then right now there are 6 of those lots that are developed. So this particular home, the Eyrie, is a 10-bedroom estate on 3 acres with breathtaking 270-degree views of the ocean and of the rest of the island. And it's It's $58 million. It is a nice property, and has, like I said, a little bit of a history to it, but very exclusive. But yes, on some of those islands, we do get this type of buyer, but that doesn't mean we don't have the things that, are $200,000, like in the Amber Coast, where people can go and buy a vacation property in the Dominican Republic all day long. So we do have a lot of different product available, but that just happens to be one of the big ones that's in our system right now.
Wow, that's impressive. Having Richard Branson as a neighbor certainly wouldn't be a bad deal.
I'm looking down on his house, by the way. He's not looking down on you. You're actually looking down on Richard's house, so it's quite cool.
Yeah. I just to make a correction for our listeners, you mentioned Realogy, who is now Anywhere Real Estate.
Yes, thank you.
We both grown up in the Realogy and Sendit days. So as we're learning more about the Western Atlantic and the Caribbean and all of these islands and territories, I know that you have a lot of franchises already within the Coldwell Banker Island affiliates kind of portfolio. But what are some of the territories and opportunities for someone who might like to buy into a franchise and service this paradise of the world?
Right. Well, you mentioned the islands where we have offices right now. So Coldwell Banker Island Affiliates has a now 26-year history. So let me just kind of back up. We were the first master franchise within the Coldwell Banker system, and that was buying a territory. This just happened to be 30 islands for us for a 25-year period. And that 25-year period was up last June. So we are now on our second 25-year period. So of the islands, you mentioned that we're live. We have some other ones that are really important to us. We're looking right now mainly for Puerto Rico, for someone to go in there. Puerto Rico has been really just such an up-and-coming island. But there's also great demand right now for Barbados, which is kind of on the southern end of our territory. And then we're looking for St. Kitts and Nevis, and then also Trinidad and Tobago. So Trinidad and Tobago would kind of be on the bottom too. So we're Bermuda to the north of our territory, all the way to Trinidad and Tobago to the south. St. Bart's is still available, but St. Bart's is a little unique because it is a French territory. So for any of our islands who are French territories, we do need a French citizen and a French broker to run that, just because it's governed by French law. So there's some, stickiness to some of the islands, but definitely things that we can overcome.
Yeah. So just to follow up on what Carla was saying there, you're talking about the territories and the opportunities for franchise owners. As a franchise owner, for instance, if I were to, wanted to become the franchise owner for Puerto Rico, in essence, I would be running Coldwell Banker Puerto Rico. Is that right?
Or one of our offices in Puerto Rico. You might not have the whole island. I mean, Puerto Rico is, because of demographics, is a large island. So on some of our islands, you can buy the rights to the whole island. I'm not saying Puerto Rico isn't one of them. That's just a bigger franchise owner. And then the smaller islands would be just independent, typically one office that would run the whole island.
Okay. And you've been with Coldwell Banker for a while. What are the advantages of being a part of such a well-known, well-recognized brokerage, and even give me a little bit of flavor of what that looks like, in the setting where you're marketing and selling properties in a global nature throughout the islands.
Well, if you think about it, when you come to a real estate market, it's unknown territory, right? So everyone is always a little hesitant because you don't know anybody normally. You might have a friend that have moved there and maybe they give you a referral. But if you don't know anyone, you're really looking for something that makes you feel comfortable. So Coldwell Banker obviously has been around for over 100 years. It's a huge brand, and it brings some familiarity to people to put them more in their comfort zone as far as moving forward with a real estate purchase or even listing that their home. So, with that, we have agents around the world. You can talk to other people about Coldwell Banker. Everyone knows who they are. So it's not like you're finding some little independent that you really don't know their history, whether they can close a property, who do you trust? Coldwell Banker does bring all that to the table.
And from your perspective, being in the real estate game yourself, what types of
trends and activities are you seeing affect or impact real estate on the islands today?
Well, the islands have always been very popular, and for a number of different reasons. And what's unique, I guess, about our region is that, we have 30 different islands, and that means 30 different cultures, 30 different governments, 30 different ways of law of how things are run. So it brings a flavor, to the market, basically. So every island is a little different. The one thing that seems to be a theme right now is inventory, which is still low on most of our islands, with the exception, I would say, of the Dominican Republic and Jamaica. We are seeing more and more people who are comfortable purchasing property overseas. And I think the pandemic somewhat changed that because people just got up and left, right? They said, I need to be somewhere where I feel safe, and I want to be somewhere warm where I can be outside. So all of that sort of started the major trend of people really looking hard at the Caribbean islands, and that's kept up. But that's also been a result of why we are with the low inventory, similar to Florida. It's been almost impossible to find things, and that is slowly starting to come back. Some of the challenges that we're seeing, though, when people are buying property in the islands, is that the transaction takes much longer than, if we're in the US or Canada, for example. So listings, it could be a year and a half. On some of our islands, transactions, depending on which island it is, could be 60 days or it could be 6 months for something to close, because there's just a lot of bureaucracy and things that have to happen, when you're a foreign buyer coming in. So it just makes it, but it happens every day. And, we're happy to help anybody that comes down. That's for sure. And we educate everyone on this too. It's a process, right?
Yeah. So, I thank you for that information. I think it's great for our listeners. And in addition to, the home buyer, home seller that we're speaking to, what would you say to industry professionals like yourself that wanted to get involved or, chuck this, Northeast for the islands and wanted to, be a part of that type of lifestyle, but also, maintain their profession?
Mm-hmm. As an investor, or coming down kind of in a franchise sort of move?
From a brokerage or an agent perspective.
Yeah. Well, we have so many islands where we can welcome people to come and getting, being able to be I shouldn't say necessarily licensed, because licensing law doesn't exist on some of our islands. It does on others. But licensing law does come into play if you wanted to be an agent on certain islands that we have, like Jamaica, for example, Bahamas, Bermuda. Those all have places where you have to go through that educational training. Franchise ownership, a little bit different, depending on the country you come from, because there is immigration. So you might be able to be, there might be no regulations if you were able to come as a foreign owner and buy a company, or you might have to have some sort of structure where you're partnering with someone that's on island. And that's not unfamiliar to many of us, 51% partnership or whatever it may be, in order to run that business there. But we do have opportunities, and we welcome people to reach out to us and talk about it, because there's a lot of advantages, not only for the franchise owner, but even for an investor, right? So you have tax incentives, the ability to perhaps get residency. Sometimes it's even just for a second passport, which is huge right now, what people have been looking for, because they want to be able to travel a little more readily with a different passport in hand.
Sure. And looking ahead, what are the goals for Coldwell Banker Island affiliates in terms of network expansion or impact to the region?
So we tap out at the 30 islands when we get there, and we're about halfway there right now. So the goal obviously would to basically be live on every single island that we have. But I'd like to keep the conversation going about the islands, because what I've been hearing so much, and what everyone tends to talk about, is, Greece and Italy and Spain and Portugal. But people are coming to the islands like crazy, but it doesn't have this hype behind it. And I really think that there is a well-deserved hype, because the islands are so beautiful and they are so unique in every different one. You can't really lump the Caribbean into one region because everything is so different. You know, the language is different, the people are different, the law is different, how things are handled. And there is a great beauty in all of that. So my role really is to bring that to everyone and show everyone, showcase what we have to offer on all of our different islands and the different lifestyle that's available in a new place of paradise to call home.
Yeah. So I have to ask this. This is, always been kind of in the back of my mind, I guess. Is it Caribbean or Caribbean?
Depends on where you come from. There's no right answer to it.
Yeah, I've heard both, and I never know which way.
Tomato, you know.
I just know I'd like to be there for about 3 or 4 months out of the year, minimum.
Don't blame you. Beautiful place to be.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for taking the time out and spending some time with us. I know, there's a lot of activity and a lot of news happening all the time, but if you have 5 minutes and you get tired of looking at a news feed, boy, visit ColdwellBankerIslands.com and take your mind off of all of the world's troubles. Carla, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you if they want more information?
Well, when you're on ColdwellBankerIslands.com, we do have seller and buyer resource guides. So those are great downloads for you to learn a little bit more about our islands. But I consult with people all the time. They don't know exactly what island they might want to be on. So you can reach out to me at Carla, Carla, at cbislands.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, really what you're looking for and hone it down. And then I'll put you in touch with somebody who's on one of our islands that will just take it from there.
Awesome. Great. I want to thank our guest today, Carla Kidd Rayman. She's holding it down throughout the Caribbean or Caribbean, depending on how you like to say it. And I've really enjoyed our time here today, and I want to thank you again.
My pleasure. Always happy to be on, and thanks again, Matt.
Well, the concept for MyBFF Social really evolved from the type of marketing I was doing as social media became a major force. Being able to develop highly creative, inexpensive campaigns for brands and businesses to be able to execute in a relatively condensed time frame. So you're getting really high quality creative production, and you're marrying that to social media distribution and knowledge of the ad networks. It's really what MyBFF is all about. It's really helping our clients build more business friendships forever, right? MyBFF, business friends forever.